Okay, all set.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Michael Fitzgerald. I'm the Assistant Director of the Department of Environmental Services, Air Resources Division. Today is Monday, November 17th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. or shortly thereafter. This hearing is being held to receive public comments on New Hampshire's draft state implementation plan revision to address the repeal of the Motor Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance Program. The draft SIP document is proposed by the department to meet the requirements of the Federal Clean Air Act, Section 110L, pertaining to state implementation plan non-interference demonstrations, as well as the Code of Federal Regulations 40 CFR Part 51, Subpart S, excuse me, federal requirements for motor vehicle inspection and maintenance programs. In addition, the hearing is being held to receive public comments on a draft petition to remove the state of New Hampshire from the Ozone Transport Region. The draft petition is proposed by the department pursuant to the Federal Clean Air Act, Section 176A, pertaining to interstate transport commissions. Both documents can be found on the department's website at www.des.nh.gov. For the record, public notice for the comment period and for this hearing was published in the Union Leader on October 17th, 2025, and on the department's website. This hearing is being held on the date and at the time and location indicated in that notice. Please note this hearing is being recorded. This hearing is being held in person as well as via remote access. Remote access is via Microsoft Teams to allow increased access for anyone interested in the public hearing process. In addition, a call-in option is available. The call-in number is 1-603-931-4944. Repeat that, 603-931-4944. And the access code is 6612-00775 pound. Again, 6612-00775 pound. The department has provided two mechanisms for you to alert us if you are having any trouble accessing the link to the public hearing, either through the Microsoft Teams or on the phone. If you're having problems, you can call Paige Souza at 603-271-6828, or you can email Paige at Paige, paige.n.souza@des.nh.gov. Again, Paige's phone number is 603-271-6828, and the email address is paige.n.souza@des.nh.gov. Anyone wishing to make oral comments on the draft SIP revision or the draft 176 petition for the department's consideration may do so during this hearing. You're also encouraged to submit written comments. If you experience any difficulties with electronically raising your hand or calling in during this hearing, please submit your comments in writing via email to Catherine A. Beam at des.nh.gov. That's Catherine, CATHERINE.A.Beam, BEAHM, at des.nh.gov prior to 4 p.m. on November 21st, 2025. After the close of the comment period, the department will consider all comments received and will decide whether to revise the documents in response to these comments. The department will submit the SIP and the petition to EPA for their review and consideration. This time, Kathy Beam, NHDES SIP Planning Administrator, will provide a brief overview of the proposed revision to the SIP.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Beam, and I am the State Implementation Plan Administrator for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Air Resources Division. As Mr. Fitzgerald stated, this hearing is being held to receive public comments on New Hampshire's draft 176A petition and draft state implementation plan revision to address the repeal of the New Hampshire Motor Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance Program. Since both documents were posted on the department's website at the beginning of the public comment period, I'm not going to go into significant detail about each document during this presentation. Instead, I'd like to provide a background of the critical steps in the process since House Bill 2 was signed and the Clean Air Act requirements related to the Motor Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance Program. Then I will give a brief overview of the technical analyses conducted and conclusions reached for both the 176A petition to leave the Ozone Transport
How do you have?
and the SIP revision to remove the Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance Program from New Hampshire SIP. At that point, I'll turn the hearing back to Mr. Fitzgerald for public comments. So House Bill 2 was signed into law on June 30th, 2025. House Bill 2 included the repeal of portions of RSA Chapter 260, Administration of Motor Vehicle Laws, RSA Chapter 266, Equipment of Vehicles, and RSA Chapter 125-S, Motor Vehicle Air Pollution Abatement Fund. Passage of House Bill 2 removes New Hampshire's legal authority, implementing regulations, and funding to support New Hampshire's vehicle I&M program. Under the Clean Air Act requirements, which I will review in a moment, I&M program, New Hampshire must also submit a request to EPA to withdraw the state from the Ozone Transport Region. Therefore, New Hampshire DES has drafted both a SIP revision and a 176A petition, which are the topic of this hearing. The close of the public comment period is 4 p.m. on Friday, November 21st, 2025. And the department will consider all comments received and will decide whether to revise the documents in response to such comments. The department will submit the SIP and the petition to EPA for their review and consideration no later than December 24th, 2025. And with the repeal of the underlying inspection program outlined in RSA 266:1, remaining language in House Bill 2 related to emission control equipment was effectively eliminated on January 31st, 2026. So New Hampshire currently has a vehicle I&M program for two reasons. The first reason is because of our historical non-attainment status with ozone under the 1979 and 1997 National Ambient Air Quality Standards, or NAAQS. Ozone is formed from nitrogen oxides, or NOx, and volatile organic compounds, known as VOCs, in the presence of sunlight. Vehicle I&M programs are a requirement of Section 182 of the Clean Air Act as part of the toolbox states have to reduce NOx and VOCs and thus reduce ozone levels in ambient air. The second reason for New Hampshire's motor vehicle I&M program is because of the Clean Air Act Section 184B, which gave EPA the authority to establish an interstate transport region. The Ozone Transport Region, OTR, was created under the Clean Air Act to help states work together to get into attainment for ozone. The state of New Hampshire is currently part of the OTR. Under the Clean Air Act, states that are part of the OTR must have a vehicle I&M program regardless of attainment status. As part of the Clean Air Act, EPA is given the authority to add or remove states from the OTR as outlined in Section 176A. So now I'm going to start with a discussion of the 176A petition, and to help orient everyone, I've included a current map of the states or portions of states in the Ozone Transport Region. New Hampshire DES prepared a draft Section 176A petition for public comment. Under Section 176A, the governor must submit the petition to the EPA administrator requesting New Hampshire be removed from the Ozone Transport Region. New Hampshire DES focused the technical analysis associated with the petition on New Hampshire's NOx and VOC emissions and the impact those emissions have on the ozone attainment status of other areas within the OTR. In the technical analysis for the 176A petition, New Hampshire DES evaluated New Hampshire emissions and their impact to exceedances of the ozone standard at monitors across the OTR, and then further refine the analysis to determine whether New Hampshire emissions contributed to violations of the standards. Isolated exceedances of a standard does not constitute a formal violation of the NAAQS. Formal violations of the NAAQS and the basis of an attainment demonstration is based on a 3-year average of highest ambient monitored values as compared to the NAAQS. I know that's pretty complicated, but that is what is considered a design value. The NAAQS are specifically designed to be protective of health, but at the same time to not penalize an area because of isolated outlying exceedances of the level of NAAQS. So, for the 176A petition, New Hampshire did a review of the available technical guidance. Consistent with this 176A petition submitted by the state of Maine several years ago, we reviewed the technical guidance for removing areas from the Northeast Ozone Transport Region, a document that was dated May 25th, 1995. Although it's dated, New Hampshire DES feels that the methodology is still relevant and appropriate given the language of the Clean Air Act. Items specifically recommended by the guidance were forward trajectories for every ozone exceedance in the OTR and the extent to which vehicles in the opt-out state travel to another OTR state and emit pollutants in the other state. In addition, New Hampshire DES consulted with EPA Region 1 and developed additional analysis steps such as the review of backward trajectories on dates when potential New Hampshire emissions may have influenced ozone exceedances, refining the backward trajectories for violating ozone monitors in the OTR, examination of EPA and OTC contribution modeling results, and finally, a review of emission inventory data for the OTR and New Hampshire. So with regard to the wind pattern analyses, in phase 1, New Hampshire DES produced and mapped forward trajectories for every day in 2021, 2022, and 2024, in which there was an ozone exceedance in the OTR. The year 2023 was excluded from the analysis due to extensive wildfires. The trajectory origin corresponded to a centroid in south central New Hampshire from which most of New Hampshire's emissions emanate. In phase 1, New Hampshire ran 840 trajectories on 105 dates and assessed 805 individual exceedances. This allowed us to narrow it down into phase 2. In phase 2, DES produced and mapped backward trajectories when potential New Hampshire emissions may have influenced ozone exceedances either because the trajectories passed within 100 kilometers of a monitored exceedance or because the monitor was located in either Maine or Massachusetts. New Hampshire ran 384 backward trajectories for 21 dates with 80 individual exceedances in phase 2. In phase 3, DES further refined the analysis by looking at monitoring specifically in non-attainment areas. DES produced and mapped 135 backward trajectories run on 3 dates with 15 individual exceedances assessed. Finally, in phase 4, DES analyzed both EPA and the Ozone Transport Commission ozone contribution modeling results. EPA's modeling was done for its preliminary assessment of ozone transport for the 2015 ozone NAAQS. The OTC performed similar modeling using a different photochemical model and a different tool to project emissions from electric generating units. DES used a 1% of the NAAQS threshold, or in the case of the 2015 ozone standard, a threshold of 0.70 parts per billion, as a screening metric for evaluating contribution. EPA has historically used a 1% of the NAAQS screening threshold in its contribution analyses. This analysis showed that New Hampshire's contribution to monitors located in non-attainment areas was well below the 0.70 parts per billion, and therefore New Hampshire's emissions are not expected to adversely contribute to ozone at any non-attainment monitor in the OTR. New Hampshire DES then went on to evaluate emission inventory data using the 2022 emissions estimates for each state in the OTR from the 2022 version 1 emissions modeling platform. This information showed that New Hampshire's NOx and VOC emissions are only about 2 to 3% of total OTR emissions, and New Hampshire's 2022 and projected future year NOx and VOC emissions are expected to decline, particularly for NOx. It should also be noted that historically, NOx and VOC emissions for New Hampshire's permitted stationary sources have declined significantly over the last 20 years, again, especially for NOx. Finally, New Hampshire went on to analyze the impact of New Hampshire vehicles traveling to other OTR states. The analysis showed that the approximated emissions from New Hampshire commuters into Massachusetts ranges from about 4 to 5% of Massachusetts light-duty gasoline vehicle VOC and NOx emissions, respectively. For Vermont and Maine, the percentages are even less. This analysis didn't take into consideration the reduction in NOx and VOC emissions from the number of commuters from Mass, Maine, and Vermont that travel into New Hampshire. So in conclusion, New Hampshire DES's trajectory analyses included in the 176A petition demonstrates that New Hampshire's emissions were not transported toward other OTR ozone monitors on days when ozone violations were recorded. EPA and OTC contribution modeling for the 2008 and the 2015 ozone NACs further demonstrates that New Hampshire's contribution to every monitoring site in other states within the OTR is less than 1% of both of those standards. Therefore, DES has demonstrated that New Hampshire's emissions are not expected to adversely impact ozone level at non-attainment monitors in the OTR. The emission impacts of New Hampshire motor vehicles traveling to other OTR states were shown to be very low. NOx and VOC emissions in New Hampshire have trended downward, and that trend is expected to continue. And finally, New Hampshire commits to retaining all other control measures besides the vehicle I&M program that are contained in the New Hampshire SIP and which allowed the state of New Hampshire to come into attainment with the NACs. Now I want to touch on the vehicle I&M SIP revision document. New Hampshire DES prepared a SIP revision for submittal to EPA Region 1 for New Hampshire to repeal the motor vehicle I&M program. The SIP revision outlines New Hampshire's carbon monoxide and ozone non-attainment history, which led to the implementation of enhanced vehicle I&M. In addition, the SIP revision includes a Clean Air Act Section 110L or anti-backsliding demonstration to show that removing the I&M program will not interfere with New Hampshire's ability to maintain attainment with these NACs. New Hampshire DES did a review of available guidance and found a draft document from 2005 entitled Demonstrating Non-Interference under Section 110L of the Clean Air Act when revising a state implementation plan. Although it's dated and still marked draft, DES feels that the methodology recommendations are still relevant and appropriate based on the review of the Clean Air Act and discussions with EPA Region 1. New Hampshire DES focused the pollutant analysis for the SIP revision on the pollutants NOx, VOCs, and CO, because these are the pollutants the vehicle I&M program is designed to reduce. The vehicle I&M programs are required in areas with non-attainment areas for CO and ozone. And these are the NACs for which New Hampshire has historically been in non-attainment, whether it's the 1971 CO NACs or the 1979 and 1997 ozone NACs. New Hampshire DES used both ambient air quality data and emission inventory data to evaluate the 110L requirement of the Clean Air Act. New Hampshire compared current air quality or design values to existing NACs, historical design value trends, and an analysis in which 2022 emission inventory with the motor vehicle I&M program was compared to projected emission inventory in 2026 without the vehicle I&M program. Emissions evaluated included statewide emissions from all sectors, on-road, non-road, point, and area sources. The emission inventory data was developed using MOVES 5, which is an EPA-approved model for estimating vehicle emissions. A design value is a statistic that describes the air quality status of a given location relative to the level of NACs. In the case of the current ozone NACs, which is 70 parts per billion, The design value is the 3-year average of highest monitored value. All recent design values in New Hampshire out of the monitors located in New Hampshire are well below the 8-hour ozone max of 70 parts per billion. This chart shows historic 8-hour ozone design value trends in New Hampshire. The blue dots and line represent the highest 8-hour ozone design value measured in New Hampshire for each design value period. The dashed red line shows the level of the NACs and how it has become more stringent over the years. Here, DES is showing the 3 most recent carbon monoxide design values for both the 1-hour and 8-hour NACs. All recent design values in New Hampshire are well below the 1-hour and 8-hour CO NACs of 35 parts per million and 9 parts per million, respectively. This chart shows the historic 1-hour carbon monoxide design value trends. As you can see, we've been in attainment for the 1-hour CO design or NACs. And then this chart shows the 8-hour CO design value trends in New Hampshire, starting in 1976 through the most recent 2024. The blue dots and lines represent the single highest CO design value measured in New Hampshire for each design value period. The dashed red line shows the level of the NACs. This table shows the 2022 base year and 2026 projection year emission estimates for New Hampshire, including New Hampshire's own on-road mobile estimates as previously described. The data shows that even with the discontinuation of New Hampshire's vehicle I&M program, emissions of CO and ozone precursors are expected to decline in the future, with reductions in NOx estimated to be 16%, VOCs at 2.7%, and CO at 1.9%. So in conclusion, New Hampshire DES is demonstrating in the SIP revision that New Hampshire's current monitored CO and ozone levels are well below the NACs. CO, NOx, and VOC emissions in New Hampshire have trended downward, and the trend is expected to continue. And finally, New Hampshire commits to retaining all other control measures besides the vehicle I&M program that are contained in the New Hampshire SIP and which allow the state of New Hampshire to come into attainment with the NACs. That I'll turn hearing back to Michael.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, as you can see, DES has conducted a highly complex and detailed analysis related to addressing the Clean Air Act requirements. At this time, we will conduct the remainder of the hearing in 2 sections. One, briefly, we will address clarifying questions regarding, excuse me, regarding Kathy's presentation. Again, I would ask you to limit these to just clarifying things that you didn't understand or might have missed or whatever. We will not be addressing detailed technical questions regarding the highly complex nature of the analysis. Should you have questions like those, those would probably best be submitted to us at the addresses that we gave earlier for comments. Following that, we will then open for hearing. This is our opportunity to hear from you. Again, we won't be addressing questions. It'll be your opportunity to tell us what you think about the documents, any technical issues that you think need to be raised, those kind of things. And so that will be, and we will ask each person to identify themselves, their name, their organization, or if they're unaffiliated, the town which they're from. So at this point, we will begin. If you have any clarifying questions that we can address fairly quickly, we'll try to do that in a brief period here. If so, use the raise hand function on the Microsoft Teams app, or anyone here in the room. All right, we have one raise. Oh.
Hello, that's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
Hi there, Catherine Corkery from New Hampshire Sierra Club. Thank you for the overview. wanted to ask where, I think it was the last table in Ms. Beam's, yes, this table, where would I find this?
So this is inside the document related to the I&M SIP revision.
In the SIP revision document?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Do we have any other clarifying questions? Kathy, your hand is still up. Is that, did you just not put it down, or do you have another question?
Sorry.
No problem. Okay. All right, seeing no further questions, we will enter into the public comment portion of the hearing. First, we will take comments from those here in the room. I have one yellow card here for public comment. Then we will take comments from those of you who are on the Microsoft Teams application. And following that, we will take comments from those who are on the phone. Again, this is your opportunity to address us and give us your comments on this, not an opportunity to question us. So with that, so those of you who intend to testify, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Again, we'll start here in the room and then go to the Teams application and then on the phone. And present here in the room today, we have Dan Bennett from New Hampshire ADA, from the Dealers Association. Dan, you want to come up and have a seat so the microphone can hear you? It's all yours.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kathy. Great presentation, great summary. My name is Dan Bennett. I'm the president of the New Hampshire Automobile Dealers Association. We are a motor vehicle trade association here in New Hampshire. We are car, truck, motorcycle, snowmobile, ATV, construction, and farm equipment, heavy truck dealers, and collision repairers. We are over 500 businesses, over 14,000 employees in every community and corner of the state. Again, thanks for the time. I'll be brief. I'm simply here to state that we will be submitting substantive written comment by the 4 p.m. deadline on Friday, indicating our concerns and our lack of support for this approach to both roadway safety as well as emission reduction initiatives taken by the legislature, and as a result, this subsequent amendment. So we'll have all of that in by the deadline, 4 p.m. Friday. Thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you very much. All right. No one else here in the room? Questions? Just one, rather. Do we have any hands raised?
I don't see any yet.
Catherine Corkery, your hand is raised. Do you want to testify?
I do. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
My name's Catherine Corkery. I am the chapter director for New Hampshire Sierra Club, and we oppose the repeal of the vehicle annual safety and emission testing and the proposed rule change in the state implementation plan. The true cost of putting potentially more pollution in the air from the transportation sector was never fully discussed or evaluated in the State House. And we will be submitting thorough comments in the time period on Friday, and appreciate the opportunity to provide those comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else online that wishes to comment? Is there anyone on the phone? Anyone listening in by phone that wishes to comment? Again, what's the phone? Star 5? Is it?
Star 5.
Star 5 on your phone. Will raise your hand so that we can. Would you like to comment?
It looks like someone with an 8151 of the last 4 digits of their phone number might want to comment. Do you see that?
Telephone number
Yeah.
603-986-8151. Did you wish to comment? Are they muted, Lisa?
It's like they can unmute.
Again, telephone 603-986-8151. You're muted. Did you wish to comment?
You can push star 6 if you would like to unmute yourself.
It's not.
You're unmuted now if you'd like to say something.
All right. Thank you very much. So,
We did have a few people join after we started presenting.
yes,
If I could
go ahead.
complete the sign-in sheet. Heather Bullimore, could you let us know your organization or affiliation?
I'm with BCM Environmental and Land Law.
Okay, thank you. Amy Manzelli, could you identify your organization?
As soon as I find that mute button, also BCM Environmental and Land Law. Thank you.
John Bradley?
Hi, all. This is John Bradley. I'm Vice President of Sales with Opus Inspection. Thank you.
I think we had some folks from EPA join. Eric Wortman, are you on the line?
Hi, yes, I'm here with a couple of our colleagues.
Thank you. Okay. Was there anyone else that did not get to enter their name and affiliation into the sign in?
And just for the record, make clear that our presentation today and these documents are only related to the vehicle emissions inspections portion of the inspection, not the safety inspection. That's the safety inspection and the vehicle emission inspection are conducted jointly, but this presentation only addresses the emissions inspection part of the repeal in HB2. So with that, no one else wanting to comment any further, I will close the hearing. I remind you that written comments may be submitted by 4 p.m. this Friday, November 21st, 2025. You can submit written comments to Catherine Beam, Air Resources Division, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, P.O. Box 95, Concord, New Hampshire, 03302-0095. Repeat that. Catherine Beam, Air Resources Division, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, P.O. Box 95, Concord, New Hampshire, 03302-0095. Or you can email Catherine at Catherine, CATHERINE .a.beam, BEAHM @ves.nh.gov, same address I gave you previously. So we thank everyone for participating today, and the hearing is closed.